Okay, so picture this. I, Annabelle Lee, an actual, living, breathing human being from the 21st century, woke up one morning and bam! Suddenly, I'm stuck in this ridiculous romance novel. Yeah, you heard me right, a novel. It's called Liam's Moonlight, and honestly, it's one of those super cheesy, over-the-top things I probably rage read at 2 a.m. before bed. And guess what? I'm the villainess, the one destined for a spectacularly messy, totally unglamorous end. Talk about a raw deal, right? But here's the kicker. My brain, bless its little cotton socks, has every single plot point of this novel downloaded with 5G speed. It's not like a hazy dream, oh no. It's like a meticulously detailed instruction manual, complete with character profiles, plot twists, and a full-on spoiler alert for my impending doom. It's so real, so vivid, it's like I've lived inside this story forever. Like someone just took a giant USB stick labeled Liam's Moonlight and plugged it directly into my subconscious, overwriting everything else. Honestly, it's kind of impressive how thorough the universe was in giving me this cheat sheet. The moment I woke up in this new, but technically old, body, there was this super weird feeling, like a TV screen flickering with static at the very edge of my vision. It was this tiny, almost imperceptible hum, a subtle offness that just wouldn't quit. My first thought, naturally, was, uh-oh, did I get hit by a truck or something before I ended up here? But then, my brilliant brain, in its infinite wisdom, immediately went into full-on crisis management mode. Annabelle, darling, it whispered, this is just the side effect of crossing dimensions. Your old soul is just getting cozy in this new and admittedly much more expensive body. Nothing to see here, folks. And just like that, the static vanished. Poof, gone. My brain, being the ever-optimistic, slightly unhinged organ it is, decided that I had just been handed a golden ticket. Transmigration, I practically yelled internally. This is my second chance, baby. The novel's plot, which was suddenly clearer than my actual memories of, say, what I had for breakfast yesterday, became my North Star. It was my detailed roadmap out of villainy, my escape route from a tragic fate, and frankly, my ticket to a much less stressful life. Who needs existential dread when you have a handy little guide telling you exactly which metaphorical landmines to avoid? Not this girl. So, for the past few months, armed with my trusty plot Bible, I've been living my best pseudo-villainess-turned-good life. Operation Avoid Sarah Jenkins, the female lead, bless her perpetually damsel-in-distress heart, was a roaring success. That girl, for all her sweetness and light, was a walk-in catastrophe magnet, and I wanted absolutely no part of that drama. And as for Operation Befriend Liam Carter, the male lead, a brooding CEO with more money than sense, but hey, a girl's gotta eat, well, that's been going surprisingly well. I've traded my original counterpart's haughty glares for demure smiles, her cutting remarks for thoughtful observations. I've become the epitome of the gentle, intelligent rich girl. It's a lot of work putting on this show every day, but hey, fake it till you make it, right? My entire worldview now revolves around this novel. Every decision, every interaction is filtered through the lens of what would the original Annabelle Lee do to screw things up, and how can I do the exact opposite? There's no fear, no doubt, just a relentless, almost cheerful determination to rewrite my destiny. The idea that this might not be transmigration, my brain wouldn't even entertain such a ludicrous thought. It's too invested in this narrative. It's like trying to convince a cat that it's not actually the rightful owner of the couch. Impossible. Right now, I'm lounging in the lavish Lee family mansion. It's one of those places with more rooms than I could ever count, a sprawling garden that probably costs more to maintain than my old apartment building, and enough marble to build a small Roman Colosseum. Living here is, well, it's pretty darn sweet. If I play my cards right, this life of luxury and peace is mine for the taking. No more student loans, no more questionable takeout, just designer clothes and a butler who probably knows more about my daily schedule than I do. And Liam Carter, oh, that gorgeous, stoic CEO, he's starting to actually notice me. Not with the usual exasperated eye roll he reserved for the original Annabelle, but with this curious gaze. A slight nod here, a lingering look there. It's subtle, but I've got my villainous detecting radar tuned to maximum. My plan is working. I'm totally winning him over with my newfound niceness and shockingly good poker face. Take that, original plot. But, being the good Annabelle Lee requires a certain level of commitment. The original Annabelle Lee was, to put it mildly, a bit of a mess. Her room, despite being enormous, felt heavy, like it still clung to the echoes of her dark, brooding personality. So I decided it was time for a purge. Out with the old, in with the me. I needed to cleanse the space, metaphorically and literally, of all that bad juju. Underneath the ridiculously ornate four-poster bed, there was this ancient-looking, dusty trunk, probably filled with forgotten treasures or, more likely, embarrassing teenage angst journals. I figured, hey, why not tackle this relic of the past? As I wrestled it open, a cloud of dust billowed out, making me sneeze dramatically. Inside, nestled amongst some old ballet slippers and a faded prom dress, was this little teddy bear. It was a scruffy thing, with one button eye missing and fur that felt like it had seen better centuries. A childhood toy. But here's the weird part. I had absolutely no memory of it. Not a single solitary spark. My transmigration memories, which were usually 20/20 on everything related to Annabelle Lee, drew a blank. Huh, I mumbled, picking it up. It felt foreign, like holding a stranger's treasured possession. But then my hand brushed against something small and metallic hidden beneath the bear. I pulled it out. It was a tarnished silver necklace, thin and delicate, with the initials A.L. crudely carved into the tiny pendant. It looked handmade, almost childishly etched. As my fingers closed around the cold metal, a jolt, not of electricity, but of something else entirely, shot through me. It wasn't just cold, it was damp, like I'd plunged my hand into icy water, even though the necklace was perfectly dry, warm even, from the ambient room temperature. The sensation was intense, utterly unexpected, and lingered long after I'd pulled my hand away. My fingertips felt strangely numb, yet hyper-aware, as if they'd touched something that shouldn't exist. I shivered, a tiny tremor that ran down my spine, even though the room was a comfortable 72 degrees. It felt wrong, deeply, intrinsically wrong. My heart gave a little skip, a frantic flutter that felt out of place with the sunny afternoon outside. I quickly stuffed the necklace into the pocket of my jeans, trying to ignore the prickling sensation that still clung to my skin. It was just static, right? A residual ghost of memory from the original Annabelle, perhaps? Nothing to worry about. Just a little glitch in the matrix. Everything was fine. Totally fine. I mean, what else could it possibly be? Okay, so that whole weird damped necklace thing? Totally just static electricity. Or maybe like a minor brain glitch from my soul doing a quick dimension jump. That's what I told myself anyway, shoving the silver chain into my jeans pocket and giving the dusty old teddy bear a quick toss back into the trunk. Out of sight, out of mind, right? My 21st century brain, which, let's be real, had more important things to do than dwell on random antique trinkets, was already moving on. Liam Carter wasn't going to get himself charmed, and Sarah Jenkins wasn't going to get avoided if I was busy having an existential crisis over a missing button eye. The next few weeks were a blur of curated perfection. I was practically a walking, talking Pinterest board of how to be a graceful socialite, attending charity galas with the grace of a gazelle in designer heels, that is, sipping sparkling water like it was the elixir of life, and dropping witty, intelligent comments that always seemed to catch Liam Carter's attention. He still had that whole brooding CEO vibe going on, but now, when our eyes met across a ridiculously opulent ballroom, there was something else. Not exactly a smile, because the man apparently had a lifelong subscription to resting serious face, but a flicker, like he was trying to decipher a particularly complex equation, and I was somehow the answer. My heart would do a little happy dance, a silent fist pump for my excellent acting skills. Take that, fate! Sarah Jenkins, though, was a whole other kettle of fish. Every time I saw her at one of these high society shindigs, which honestly felt like every other day because the social calendar of the rich and famous is absolutely relentless, she'd give me this look. It wasn't the usual villainous versus heroine glare you'd expect from the novel. It was soft and sad, like she was looking at a puppy that just got rained on, or maybe a particularly tragic TikTok trend. One afternoon, at a rather dull art exhibition, she actually cornered me near a painting that looked suspiciously like a child's finger painting, all squiggles and bright colors. "Annabelle," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her hand gently closing over mine. Her touch was surprisingly warm, almost a little desperate. You've been through so much. I really hope you find some peace." My brain did a record scratch. What? Peace? Lady, I was living the dream, avoiding drama, charming the pants off the male lead, and eating caviar for breakfast. Peace was practically my middle name. I quickly pulled my hand away, a nervous giggle escaping my lips. "Oh, Sarah, you're always so sweet. Everything's just dandy. Don't you worry your pretty little head." I flashed her my brightest, most innocent smile, but her eyes, those big, empathetic doe eyes, just held that same sad, almost pitying look. Seriously, what was her deal? Did she accidentally read the wrong script? But then the dreams started. At first, they were just fragments, hazy and indistinct. An old house, dark and dusty, a faint smell of smoke, like burnt toast left too long, and a sound, a muffled scream that felt like it was playing on a loop, getting increasingly distorted each time. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart doing the cha-cha slide in my chest, and spend 5 minutes staring at my absurdly expensive ceiling, trying to figure out if I'd accidentally watched a horror movie before bed. Then, each night, it got worse. The house in my dreams became clearer. I saw cracks snaking across a familiar wall, the wallpaper peeling in grotesque strips. A child's rocking horse, subtly shifted from where it was the night before, seemed to stare at me with empty eyes. The smoke smell was stronger, clinging to my nostrils even after I woke up, making me sneeze a phantom sneeze. And that scream, oh, that scream. It wasn't just a scream anymore. It would start as a bright, childish giggle, the kind that makes your heart ache with nostalgia, then slowly, agonizingly, morph into a choked sob, then a desperate wail, until it fractured into that chilling, ear-splitting shriek. I'd jolt awake, convinced the sound was still echoing in my ears, making my head throb. Was I losing it? Was this part of the original Annabelle's trauma seeping into my perfect narrative? Even her past was dramatic. "Mr. Davies," I asked one breezy morning, trying to sound casual as he poured my freshly squeezed orange juice. The man had seen it all, run this mansion for decades. He was like a walking, talking encyclopedia of the Lee family. "That little silver necklace I found, and the teddy bear, do you remember them? Were they mine from when I was little?" I tried to keep my tone light, like I was asking about the weather, but inside, my stomach was doing flip-flops. Mr. Davies, usually as stoic and unflappable as a marble statue, paused, the juice pitcher hovering midair. His back was to me, but I saw his shoulders stiffen, just a fraction. When he finally turned, his face was different. His kind, crinkly eyes held a deep sadness, a worry I hadn't seen before. He avoided my gaze, looking somewhere over my left shoulder at nothing in particular. "Miss Annabel," he said, his voice softer than usual, a quiet sigh escaping his lips. You've changed so much after that incident. It's truly remarkable." He wrung his hands, a tiny, nervous gesture I'd never witnessed from the usually composed butler. Perhaps it's best not to dwell on the past. Some memories are best left undisturbed for your own peace of mind, dear Miss Annabel." He gave me a small, strained smile, then quickly changed the subject, asking about my breakfast preferences. His words, meant to be comforting, landed like tiny, chilling ice cubes in my heart. That incident? Best not to remember? What incident? My plot Bible certainly didn't have any incidents for the original Annabel Lee beyond her being a spoiled brat headed for ruin. This wasn't some minor side quest. This felt like a glaring plot hole, right in the middle of my perfectly planned transmigration story. Later that week, while rummaging through a forgotten built-in bookcase in my room, looking for a distraction from the increasingly vivid dreams, my fingers brushed against a loose panel. Curious, I pried it open. Inside, tucked away like a guilty secret, was an old leather-bound diary, the kind you see in old movies, with a slightly musty smell. My heart hammered a little faster. A diary? Of the original Annabel Lee? This was gold. Maybe it held some missing backstory, some juicy details that my cheat sheet had conveniently omitted. I eagerly flipped it open. The handwriting inside was undeniably mine, or rather, this body's handwriting. The first few pages were exactly as I'd expect, gushing about Liam Carter, detailing my plans to win him over, lamenting Sarah Jenkins's presence. It was so perfectly aligned with my novel memories, it sent a shiver down my spine. See, I told you everything was on track. But then the pages started to change. Halfway through, the paper was discolored, as if water had seeped into them, then dried. And then it wasn't just water damage. Whole sections were singed, blackened by fire. As I carefully turned one of the brittle, burnt pages, a faint, acrid smell wafted up, a distinct odor of smoke and charred paper. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but I smelled it. It was exactly like the smell in my dreams. My breath hitched. Interspersed with the frantic, familiar script were crude drawings, distorted stick figures, their limbs twisted in unnatural ways, their faces mere smudges of terror. Swirling lines of black smoke reaching out like grasping fingers. And then a clear, horrifying image, a crude drawing of a house engulfed in angry orange flames. Next to it, scrawled in a frantic, almost illegible hand, were fragmented sentences, barely clinging to the burnt edges of the page. The fire, the shadows, they took him away. I couldn't. I watched. Help me, please. My fingers trembled, the diary almost slipping from my grasp. The smoke smell intensified, filling my lungs, making my eyes water. But there was no smoke, not really, just the ghost of it, clinging to these charred pages. The plot in my head, my perfect, crystal-clear cheat sheet, was suddenly flickering, static creeping in at the edges, just like that strange feeling when I first woke up. These weren't gaps in the story, these were gaping, burning holes, attacking my carefully constructed reality. I wasn't Annabel Lee, the villainess in a novel anymore. I was Annabel Lee, the girl clutching a burnt diary, breathing phantom smoke, and staring at a drawing of a burning house. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage. The truth, whatever it was crawling out of the shadows, and it felt like it wanted to drag me down with it. The silence in the room was suddenly heavy, pressing down on me, and in the mirror, my reflection seemed to gaze back with wide, terrified eyes, as if seeing something I couldn't yet fully grasp. The charity gala shimmered under a chandelier that probably cost more than my entire life savings back in my other life. I was gliding through the crowd, an actual human-sized sequin swan, armed with a glass of sparkling cider, a girl gotta be sensible, even when charming a CEO, and a smile that could disarm a bank vault. Liam Carter, bless his perfectly chiseled jawline, was actually talking to me, not about quarterly reports, but about, get this, modern art. Who knew the man had a soul? My novel brain was practically doing cartwheels. Everything was going according to plan. Liam was warming up, Sarah Jenkins was giving me those weird pity puppy eyes, and my bank account was looking mighty fine. Then, as I casually drifted past a potted palm that was taller than a skyscraper, two elderly ladies, dripping in diamonds and judging glances, leaned in conspiratorially. Their voices, despite their hushed tones, carried through the thin air of my current bubble of happiness. "Poor Mr. Lee," one of them whispered, her perfectly coiffed hair bobbing. "Lost his wife, then little Annabelle." That fire was just tragic, wasn't it? People say she was never the same after that. My sparkling cider almost went down the wrong pipe. Fire? Lost Annabelle? Excuse me, what? My inner monologue screeched to a halt, scattering all the charming remarks I had prepped. The other woman, daintily adjusting her pearl necklace, nodded sadly. "And it wasn't an accident, dear. A real incident, right in the house. Hush, don't mention it. Don't want to upset him. He's already been through so much." My world, which had been so neatly arranged like a meticulously organized closet, suddenly got hit by a tornado. An incident? A fire? Annabelle Lee, the original one, the one in my oh-so-reliable novel, was supposed to be a spoiled brat who eventually got her comeuppance. There was no fire, no tragic loss, no never-the-same business. My plot Bible, my sacred text, had absolutely no mention of any of this. Was this some kind of extended director's cut I missed? Did they publish a special edition with extra trauma? My perfectly crafted narrative felt like it was dissolving into a pile of confetti and questions. I made some excuse about needing to refresh my cider, or maybe my brain, and ducked out of the ballroom. My carefully constructed reality was starting to wobble like a cheap Jell-O mold. If those ladies were telling the truth, then my whole transmigration thing, my villainous role, my avoiding the plot mission, it was all built on a house of cards. A very pretty, very expensive house of cards, but still. Desperate, I knew there was only one person who had to know the real story, someone who would have lived through it all. Liam Carter. Not my cold, aloof male lead of the novel, but the real Liam, the one who kept looking at me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. And if there was a real Annabelle, a real past, then there had to be something between them. My instincts, usually geared towards avoiding drama, now screamed for answers. I made a beeline for his study, a place I'd learned was his sanctuary, but also where he kept old family papers. It was a long shot, but what else did I have? I rummaged through drawers, ignoring the perfectly arranged files, my hands trembling as I searched for anything that felt out of place. My fingers brushed against a small, ornate wooden box, tucked away at the back of a rarely used cabinet. It wasn't locked. Inside, neatly tied with a faded ribbon, was a stack of letters, and the top one, in a familiar, elegant script, was addressed to "My dearest Annabelle." My breath caught in my throat. I pulled them out, my eyes scanning the pages, the words blurring and then snapping into focus. They weren't just letters, they were declarations. Each one was a testament to a love I'd never read about in my novel. "My sweet Annabelle," one began, dated years ago, "I miss you every moment. Please, please come back to me. The doctors say it's a long road, but I'll be here, waiting, always. Just remember me. Remember us. Another, from even further back, the house feels so empty without your laughter. I saw your parents today. They're so worried. We all are. You just need time to heal, my love. Just please remember. Please remember. Remember? My version of Liam Carter, the one in my novel, was supposed to be a distant, almost hostile figure, someone I had to cleverly charm into adoring me. These letters paint a picture of a man utterly devoted, heartbroken, desperately clinging to hope for the return of an Annabelle he already loved. Not a new target, not a calculated acquisition, but someone he had shared a deep past with. My carefully constructed plot armor suddenly felt paper thin. These weren't gaps in my story, these were craters, gaping holes where a whole other life, a whole other me should have been. The irony was so thick, I could practically chew on it. Here I was trying to win over the male lead when apparently he was already my knight in shining armor, waiting for me to just wake up. My perfect plan, more like a tragically misguided comedy sketch. I ran. I didn't care about my designer gown, my carefully styled hair, or the fact that I was leaving a high society event looking like a ghost had just chased me. I ran out of the study, through the quiet hallways of the mansion, my heart thumping a desperate rhythm against my ribs. My feet barely touched the polished floors, propelled by a raw, unadulterated need for truth. The moon hung high, a pale, indifferent witness, as I burst into the mansion's sprawling garden. The scent of night-blooming jasmine, usually so soothing, now felt cloying, suffocating. There, under the soft glow of a lamppost, Mr. Davies was meticulously trimming a rosebush. His silhouette was familiar, his movements calm, almost meditative. He was a rock, an anchor in the storm of my crumbling reality, a symbol of stability I had always, foolishly, believed in. I stumbled towards him, the diary in one hand, the bundle of letters in the other, both clutched so tightly my knuckles were white. "Mr. Davies," I gasped, my voice a ragged, desperate whisper, barely recognizable as my own. "Mr. Davies, please." He slowly, deliberately lowered his pruning shears, placing them on the stone bench beside him. He turned, his kind eyes, usually so gentle, now filled with an ocean of sorrow. He looked at me, truly looked at me, for the first time. "Miss Annabelle," he said, his voice softer than I had ever heard it, devoid of any drama, any theatricality. It was just quiet, unwavering truth. "You've always been Annabelle Lee." He paused, his gaze never leaving mine, a silent acknowledgement of the decade that had passed. "It's been 10 years, my dear. Ever since that fire, you've changed so much." He took a slow, deep breath, his hands, once so composed, now clasped tightly in front of him. "The doctors, they said you suffered from selective amnesia, and that perhaps you created a world, a story in your mind, to cope with the horrifying truth of what happened." His words hung in the cool night air, each syllable a hammer blow against the fragile walls of my novel world. Imaginary world, horrifying truth. My perfect, carefully curated existence, the one where I was the clever transmugurator avoiding a tragic end, shattered into a million glittering, worthless pieces. My body froze. The old diary and Liam's letters slipped from my numb fingers, fluttering silently to the damp earth. My eyes, which a moment ago held the vibrant, confident narrative of a clever heroine, were now empty, unfocused, staring right through Mr. Davies, through the rose garden, into an abyss I couldn't comprehend. A strange, twisted smile, almost a grimace, slowly stretched across my lips, a horrifying mask that didn't belong to me, then just as quickly vanished. My gaze drifted to a small ornamental mirror hanging near the garden gate, reflecting the moonlight. I blinked. My reflection in the mirror seemed to hesitate, a tiny, almost imperceptible lag before blinking too. My dark hair, loose and flowing, shimmered. But in that glass, for a horrifying second, I saw it shift, melting into an ash gray, before snapping back to black. The twisted smile I had just worn lingered for a fraction of a second longer in the reflection, a grotesque echo, before the horror finally caught up to my actual face, twisting my features into a silent scream. If I wasn't an outsider, a soul from another world, if this novel was just a desperate fabrication of my broken mind, then those fragments, those terrifying shards of memory, the burning house, the acrid, choking smoke, the chilling touch of a hand on my face in the darkness, the muffled screams, what were they? What really happened in that fire, 10 years ago, to shatter my world so completely that my own mind had to build a fictional one to hide me from the ruins? The answer, I knew, was waiting in those terrifying echoes, lurking just beyond the edge of my fabricated reality, ready to consume me whole.